What's up everybody? I am currently editing the video you're about to watch, and I just wanted to start off the video by saying I'm so sorry for missing my normal schedule to post videos. The company that I work part-time for had a rush to prep for SEMA, and then we ended up going to SEMA for the week, so I lost 2 weeks worth of time there. So I just want to say that I apologize that I screwed up my normal posting schedule, but from here on to the end of the build, we should be good for me to post on time and to get this build done. I really appreciate everybody watching. I'm sorry that this took so long to get this video out, but I really hope you enjoy this video. There's a ton that I get done. I feel like the build looks crazy. We got pretty much all the fab work done, so I hope you guys like it. I hope you think it's cool, and I hope maybe even you learn something. So with that, enjoy the video. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the RX7 turbo drift car build. In last video, we got the intercooler and the radiator V-mounted in the car. Unfortunately, I was not able to get the bash bar and the oil coolers mounted in time for that video. So we are going to be starting with getting the oil coolers and the bash bar done on this car. I think, don't quote me on this, but I think this is going to be the last video that includes heavy fabrication. I think that that is the last main part of fabrication, and the only other thing I want to do is get the support tabs done for the fenders on both sides, and then pretty much most of the major fabrication is done on the car. There's going to be small things here and there that's going to have to get done, but that is the major stuff to getting this car ready to actually drive it, which means I think in this video we are going to get that done, and then the last fabrication piece that needs to be done is going to be getting our turbo manifold built and the turbo mounted and our downpipe done. Now I'm going to try and get this car to an event in December. That's why I'm starting to make a big push to get this thing done. So I want to start to really get this stuff dialed in. So in order to do that, we got to really bust a move, which means all of this fabrication is going to get done hopefully in this video. And if that works out correctly, I'm going to start getting all of the turbo stuff done and the radiator lines done. So this radiator is just a standard inlet outlet radiator, but we are going to be building a swirl pot for the cooling system and then make it fully AN. So hopefully we'll be able to get all of the fab work done and then get our cooling system routed and probably get our turbo intercooler piping all done also. So follow along. We're doing a bunch of fab. We're going to try and get a bunch of stuff done in this video, and hopefully the car's on the final stretch so that we can get started on getting the wiring and the ECU set up in this thing so we can get it tuned, running, and get it drifting. I'm super stoked to be building an actual removable bash bar that has jacking points and all the other fun stuff. The last one that I had was just enough to hold the oil coolers and was welded straight to the frame, so it wasn't removable. It's kind of a terrible design, so I'm happy that I'm doing something that is done the correct way. That's been part of the point of this build, is to redo all of the stuff that I learned from and apply a lot of the new knowledge that I've gained into building this car correctly, making it more functional, more useful, and easier and faster and more efficient to work on the car itself. Well, our time here has unfortunately been cut short tonight. The rain has kicked in, so we are gonna call it a night, but I was able to get the upper bar for the bash bar done. So I am gonna do this as a 2-bar bash bar, so it's going to have our upper one, which is this one here, and then it'll have actually a lower one. My thought is that the upper one's going to go just below the white trim on the inside of the bumper, and then the other one is going to go just below the cutouts. And then we have our uprights that will go from here and here, and then we have our 4 standoff bars, 2 for each side, that will go from the plate that comes from the frame rail and then pushes forward like that. So although we did get cut short, I am okay with the progress that we had today. We pretty much just have to make the lower bar and then the uprights, and then we have all of the parts cut and ready. We just have to notch them and then weld them to the car. So also I am probably gonna have a little bit more time lapses than normal in this video, just because I'm trying to make a big push in this video to get all of the fab work done. I will try and keep you guys with the plan of what's going on and make sure that you know what we're doing, why we're doing it, and be able to see how we're doing it. It's the next day. The rain has finally let off enough so that we can get working on the RX7. So we are going to jump straight into trying to get this bash bar done. Last night we got the lower or the upper bar done, as well as all of our extender bars. So today we're going to get the lower bar done and get this bash bar in this car, as long as the rain lets us do it. This rain has been a big pain in the butt. It's so annoying, but we got some time, so we're doing our measurements. We're measuring twice, multiple times, making sure everything works right, and then we're applying the measurements to the tube so that we can get it cut and then start bending it. This is going to be the lower bar for the bash bar. I think I like the shape so far. We're going to keep going and see what I think once it's installed. Well, cool. So now we have both of our front bars. You can see they're slightly different shapes. This upper one is the upper bar, and then this lower one's the lower bar. All right, so I got the driver side spanner bars done, and they're welded down to the plate. So now my next step with this is going to try and figure out some way, some sort of jig that keeps the exact distances and angles correct, but is reversible so that I can go ahead and weld the other plate and know that those two bars are going to be in the exact same side. So I'm going to try and figure that out and then go ahead and get those bars set and get these other spanner bars welded so that I can get everything bolted back in, get the front bumper off, get these guys notched, and get those guys on so that I can do the upright bars and then make it completely done. So then we can get our oil coolers mounted and then get the oil coolers plumbed to the motor. So I'm gonna do some brainstorming and see if I can figure out something that I can use that's reversible and go from there. So though I found a process that worked by just masking off on the table, marking, measuring, and then flipping all the measurements for a square to sit to tell me where to put everything, this was not, I don't feel like this was the most efficient way to do this. If anyone has recommendations of any better way to do this, definitely let me know down below, because I feel like this is not the most efficient way to do it, and I feel like I could have done something faster. I just couldn't figure out what. Well, I think that I got these guys relatively close to each other. So what that means is that I need to get the bumper off the car so I can get those guys mounted. And then once they're mounted, I need to do a string line to mark the center points, and then I can notch them so that we can get our two crossbars on and then get the uprights done and get this thing finished up. Luckily, this part was relatively straightforward. I pretty much just used a level to mark the cross lines and then was able to use that on the tubing notcher to mark the actual rotational angle on the tube so that I could then cut them. And then it was on to just putting the actual bash bar main bars on. It was luckily a straightforward process and decently easy. Well, the rain unfortunately has stopped me from moving any farther on the bash bar, but we did get our crossbars in, and I think this thing's actually gonna look pretty sick. I feel like it's got some cool stuff. So obviously our uprights are not done yet, so we are gonna have a slightly diagonal upright here to match the mouth on the bumper, and then we are going to have another diagonal upright that's going to go from here back to here, and then there might be one here. I'm not totally sure yet. I'm not convinced on that one, but definitely the one here and then the one back here. I think it's going to come out pretty sick. The other kind of cool thing about this is this actually sits around the mouth of the bumper, which means I can make tabs off of this to create the shrouding that I'm going to need for the V-mount set. So it actually kind of works out to be a multiple kind of job bash bar rather than just being a bash bar. The last thing that I'm still trying to figure out that I want to do is I do want to put a jack point in this, so I got to figure out how I'm going to do that. But overall, I think this came out pretty sick. I think it looks pretty dope. I didn't make it as tall as I was originally imagining, but I think I can still make this work and look sick. So I'm not convinced. I kind of kept it high on the lower side. So there is that. That's kind of the reason that it looks so narrow, is I could have gone down probably another 6 inches, because I have it set up so that's right below this mouth here, but I could have gone all the way down to here. So I think it'll end up being more useful this way. So unfortunately, again, done tonight, but once the rain clears up, we'll be back at it to get this thing finished up, get our oil coolers in, and move on. Well, the rain has died off a little bit. Me and Lisi, our little pepperoni. Lisi, hi babies. We're out here, the rain has died, and we are going to go ahead and get the front bash bar done. So before the rain started, we got everything kind of set in place. I am gonna get the diagonal or the upright bars here done, our diagonal bars here done, and then figure out if I wanna do an upright there. But we are going to get this bash bar done so that tomorrow we can get the oil coolers mounted and move on from there. So here we're just getting our diagonal bars cut and notched fully so that we can weld them in. I think these are actually gonna add a little bit of style to the bash bar, so I'm excited with these guys. And just like that, our oil coolers are on. I decided not to record that part because it's just making a few brackets. As you can see, they're actually pretty simple brackets, so I felt like you guys didn't need to see that. The important part is the oil coolers are on, and now we can get the oil lines connected to the car and get the oil cooling system completely done on this thing. So I am gonna cut all the lines to go between the 2 oil coolers and then back to the motor. And then I think I'm gonna call it a night for tonight, and then we'll pick up tomorrow. I think I'm gonna jump over to getting the turbo manifold started and get the turbo mounted on this thing so that we can get all the finalizing intake and exhaust stuff done on this car. All right, so our oil cooler lines are done. They are not supported yet. I'm gonna have to 3D print some little clamps and brackets, or and weld some brackets on here. But we have everything ran for the oil system. Oil coolers are mounted where they're gonna go, which is sweet because now we can move on to getting our turbo mounted, our turbo manifold built, and our downpipe going down to the exhaust done, so that we know exactly where the turbo is, which means then we can do our intercooler piping here, and then we will get started on the intercooler piping here, mounting the blow-off valve, and that will pretty much mean that our whole entire intake and exhaust system is done, which means those can be knocked off the list and we can get one step closer to getting this thing started. Pretty excited about that. This is a pretty big move. The next step on the rest of the lines, as far as AN lines, will be once the turbo's on, we'll have to do oil and coolant lines for the turbo, and then we got to do the coolant lines for the radiator. And then I think pretty much every line and hose and tube is done. So I'm gonna call it for tonight, and then we'll get back at it tomorrow and get the turbo mounted with the manifold. We'll have to get the wastegates mounted and so on. All right, so it's another day, and as you can see from the work area, it is crunch time. Unfortunately, it's gonna stay messy because I'm trying to make time. I was doing some work today off camera, just trying to get some stuff done. I am working on the collectors for the turbo manifold. I currently have a die 3D printing to mark out the actual U-shape to make the cut. So I'm waiting on that. I am getting material cut so that I can go ahead and do the swirl pot so that we can get the cooling system done. And then once the header is done, the turbo can go on and I can start doing all of the supporting stuff for the turbo, including oil lines, coolant lines, and start working on the downpipe. So like I said, we are in full crunch time right now to get as much done as possible. So I am doing like 7 things at the same time. Just when I have to wait for one thing to get done, I'm jumping over to the other thing. So this part's gonna be a little back and forth and all over the place, but it's honestly the fastest way that I can get stuff done. So we're gonna just keep on cranking. Like I said, try your best to follow along, and I'll try and keep you kind of in the loop of where we're at. But yeah, it's crunch time and we are trying to crank a bunch of stuff out. Today is Friday. I'm gonna try and get a ton of stuff done today and tomorrow, And then I think Sunday, a handful of people are coming by to help me do a bunch of mechanical stuff and get a bunch of stuff bolted on and finalize in that term. So that would be super sick if they do end up coming out. But in the meantime, we got to get this thing as done as possible as far as fabrication so that I can just get to the point of bolting things on, which is a lot faster than fabrication is. So I'm gonna stop talking so I can get to work. Hopefully you enjoy the fast-paced work, and hopefully we get a ton of stuff done very quickly. So I know I'm probably spending too much time on this turbo manifold because I think it's gonna end up being temporary. I really wanted to do some more TIG to practice, and with practicing on TIG, this thing did not come out the best by any means. So it's gonna be temporary. I think I'm gonna replace it, but for now it'll work for dyno and getting the car kind of dialed in before I go and get a better manifold for it. All right, so a quick little update for you guys. We've got the turbo header mounted and located. I verified, I actually mounted up the rest of the turbo to make sure everything worked. With that, I marked and tacked in the intake elbow for the cold side. So I'm letting that cool a bit. And while that is cooling, I got started on the swirl pot. So this is the beginnings of the swirl pot. It's a 2.5 inch swirl pot by 6 inches long. Should be plenty enough. We're gonna fit this guy somewhere around right there. And we've got our radiator cap. And I just finished up the plate that's going to go over the thermostat that will have the tube going to the surge tank, and we have the tube that we're going to be cutting up to do both the elbow coming off of the thermostat to the swirl pot and then from the swirl pot down, and then we'll have an outlet for the radiator. Like I said, for making the timeline that I'm trying to make to get to the dyno, I am not going to do AN lines for the radiator for the moment. That is going to be something after dyno. We got to finish up our swirl pot, finish up our cold side turbo elbow, and then I want to pull the header off so I can get both of the wastegates mounted, so that pretty much the only fab left is going to be the wastegate dump tubes and then our turbo downpipe. I'm not going to try and talk much more. I'm going to get back at it, but just want to give you guys a little bit of an update, let you know what's going on, get you caught up on where I'm at and kind of what my plan is and what tonight's plan is. I'm gonna jump back on getting the rest of the stuff prepped to weld the swirl pot, and then we'll weld the swirl pot and the turbo at the same time just so I can do all the welding in kind of one go. I made these little templates. As you can see, I have a whole bunch of templates. I've even got more hanging out over here. 3D printing is great because you can make really fast templates that actually let you get really close on parts that you're making. So one of the things we have to make is our wastegate dump tubes for our wastegates on our turbo manifold. Now this is a really small manifold, so everything has to be pretty precise in order to get it in the right spot. So I made these guys, which is a left and a right, and they go onto a piece of 90-degree tube, and that's what creates our wastegate point. Another thing that I'm trying to do is something called wastegate priority. So I'll give you guys a little bit of a rundown on wastegate priority. This is one of our 44mm wastegates. Basically what priority is when your exhaust flow goes in, the easier the flow can hit your wastegate, the better your wastegate can actually manage the pressure. Some wastegate tubes have the wastegates actually facing backwards. Some of them are coming straight out. Those are going to be a lower wastegate priority. On this setup, I want to make sure I can control boost as much as possible because that's going to help the motor stay as safe as possible. So one of the things that I did was design our wastegate dump tube so that it has extremely high wastegate priority. As you can see, there's a slight angle that goes from the flange down out to the turbo. That A, puts the turbo in the right spot in the car, but B, that can manage our flow going to our wastegate. Now the problem is, obviously our wastegate comes off at a 90-degree angle, so that's where these guys come in. Basically, what we want to try and do is create that flow there. Because if that flow is there, that means the gases coming out of the exhaust are going to prioritize the wastegate when it opens. 3D printed some quick little templates. We marked it out on one of the tubes, and bada bing, bada boom, that is now our wastegate priority. And as you can see, if you put it in the right spot, see if I can get this aligned here, it's pretty much a straight shot from our exhaust airflow coming out of here, going straight up into the wastegate. So that's going to give us the most efficient wastegate, and wastegates that control boost the best. And the best part about this guy is I marked it with my template just like this. I marked off the part that I don't need and the part that I do want. Hopped over to my grinder, put in some elbow work, and then literally came over here to the belt sander and just smoothed the cuts straight off the grinder. Like, didn't even try and clearance it or anything. Literally just deburred it, cleaned it up, made it smooth. And just like that, this guy sits on perfectly. So you can see it is perfect all the way around. Basically, 3D printing is awesome. You can use it to make parts, but on a faster side, you can actually use it to make really quick templates. These templates took me about 15-20 minutes to design, and then they took about 45 minutes each to print. So while I was working on other stuff on the car, these guys were printing. Bada bing, bada boom, got the template, marked it out, cut it, cleaned it, fits perfect. So if you guys would like in one of my videos for me to do a quick tutorial on making some of these templates, definitely comment down below and I'll do either a whole video or a short or something showing exactly how you make these simple design templates. Obviously everything can range from very simple and fast to very intricate, but for tube cutting templates, generally speaking, they're actually very quick to design and they're very fast to print and really easy to use, relatively speaking. I mean, these things are actually awesome. So I just want to take a second to tell you guys how much I love 3D printing, how much I like using them for templates, and also give you guys a quick rundown of exactly how that works. But enough of me talking. Let's get back into this wastegate so we can get everything finalized, get the wastegate done, because we have a down pipe and some wastegate dump pipes to make, so we can get the exhaust finished up on this thing and get really close to getting this thing to start. So last night I ended up being in just full drive mode, trying to get a lot of the exhaust stuff figured out and the wastegate dump tube. So we now have a down pipe tacked in place, and I also have the wastegate dump tubes set up. And I gotta say, it's kind of funny. My wastegate dump tubes kind of look like a shotgun, so that's fun. They're probably gonna sound like one, but kind of funny that they look like one. So, but we got these guys all done. V-bands are welded on, and then I've got the dump tube tacked in place. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish welding through the dump tube or the down pipe so that this guy is done and we can double check the fitment of the full exhaust and then move on from there. We have a down pipe in the car. We've got our wastegate dump tubes on, and I did a little bit of mocking on basically the whole turbo system to make sure that everything looks good. Nothing has clearance issues or anything like that. So our exhaust is fully done, our intake is fully done, and we are pretty much in the final steps of mechanically putting this car together. The next step is gonna be to go through and just final connect everything. There's a lot of stuff that is mocked up that needs to be just gone through and verify that it's sealed. There's a lot of gaskets and seals that need to go on. So I think that is the end of this video. I would have liked to get a little bit more in this video, but honestly, that looks so sick and I'm so happy with everything here. We have a bunch of small stuff like supports for the oil lines and some small connections and stuff like that. But we made a huge move forward in getting this car ready. The next step in this is, after I finalize everything, is going to be starting to get wiring done. Moving into our next step of this build, I would like to announce 2 new sponsors for the RX7 build, one of which is Haltech. They supplied me with a Nexus R3 and a full wiring kit and a bunch of stuff to get this thing finished up so that we can get it running. I'd also like to announce that Motor Mia has jumped on board to help out with this build. If you are looking for some of the simplest wiring and electronic stuff, check out Haltech. I just jumped on their NSP software, which is their programming software, and it's really straightforward. It's actually super easy to go through and use their stuff. I was really surprised. It was really cool because there was like a bunch of drop downs and stuff that had preloaded data and information for sensors and things like that. One of the cool things is I'm doing LS coils on this build, and they already had a drop down that had all the preloaded settings to start a base map for the LS coils. Also, Motor Mia is helping me out. If you haven't heard of it, check it out. It's an AI platform that is helping the automotive community in finding all of the parts and everything they need for their builds. It's pretty cool. I've actually used it a good amount on my car, going through the chat, asking it what I should use, things I should put on this car, recommendations for supporting mods, and so on. It's super cool that these two companies jumped on board. I'm very excited to work with them. I'm sure you guys will see more with them in the future. But with that being said, it is the end of the video, guys. I really appreciate everyone who has been supporting the videos. I appreciate everyone for watching and following along in this build process. We are getting so close. I can smell the burning fuel and we're almost there. We have so little left on this to get it to the dyno. I am so stoked for it, you guys. As always, if you like the videos, go ahead and hit the thumbs up button. If you want to follow this build, we are going to be going to the dyno soon, so you'll be able to see exactly what kind of power this whole crazy setup can do. So definitely hit the subscribe button if you want to follow into the actual driving of this car, the tuning of it. If you saw anything of concern or anything that you want more information of, feel free to leave a comment down below and we can talk about it. Lastly, if you want to support the build, I have an Etsy site that has some merch on it, as well as if you have an RX7 or a Miata, I sell 3D printed parts for them. Definitely check those out and get you some if you haven't. Beyond that, guys, I appreciate it. Next video, we're getting wiring done, and possibly, maybe, hopefully, we're gonna be going to the dyno with this thing. So stay tuned. I appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time. Peace.